Let's be real for a second. There's something inside you that's been holding on way too tight. It's like you've been clenching your jaw through life, carrying a weight that never seems to get any lighter. Every step feels forced, like you're dragging yourself uphill with no end in sight, as if the whole world would fall apart if you weren't constantly keeping it together. Can you feel it? That pressure sitting on your chest, the mental noise that never lets up, that constant itch to escape, even though you can't quite say what you're running from. You don't talk about it out loud, but deep down, you know it's there. You're tired, not just tired, but soul tired. Tired from doing, from proving, from pushing yourself long after the fuel ran out. You're worn out from the endless hustle, from swimming against the current without knowing if there's even a shore ahead. And the most disorienting thing about it, on the outside, no one sees it, no one knows. You still show up, still smile, still deliver. You tick the boxes. But inside, you're unraveling. Quietly. Slowly. Now, what if I told you this suffering, this grinding effort, is rooted in one core belief? One lie, actually. A lie that you've repeated to yourself so many times that now it feels like a fact. It's this: that you have to be in control to move forward. That you must always be pushing. That your worth is tied to how much you accomplish and how quickly you get there. But here's the catch. This lie. It didn't come from you. It was handed to you. Planted deep in your mind when you were too young to question it. Maybe it was teachers, parents, culture, the system. They told you that if you stop running, you'll fall behind. That if you don't fight for everything, you don't deserve it. That resting is laziness. That pausing is weakness. That enough is never really enough. So you believed them, like almost everyone else did. You learned to rush before you learned to breathe. You learned to chase before you learned to trust. You taught yourself to control before you ever knew how to listen. But here's something no one ever says. Not in your self-help books, not at the loud seminars filled with flashing lights and quick-fix motivation. Here it is. The more you push against life, the more it pushes back. The harder you try to force it, the more it slips away. The tighter you grip, the more disconnected you become from what actually matters. And what you've been calling progress? Sometimes it's nothing but motion for the sake of motion. A performance for a crowd that isn't even watching. A treadmill going nowhere. You believe that if you let go, everything will fall apart. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if it's your constant control that's keeping you stuck? What if letting go is exactly what allows things to come together? What if the very thing you think protects you, this hypervigilant, always on, never stop attitude, is actually the cage that's suffocating you? There's a brutal irony to this. The more peace you chase, the more anxious you become. The more you try to manage every detail, the more chaos you invite in. Why? Because it's all fear. Fear that if you stop pushing, no one will come, no one will care. Fear that if you don't carry the weight, everything will collapse. That if you ease up, you'll disappear. It's fear masquerading as responsibility. You've been conditioned to run on urgency, to see stillness as a threat. And now, it's eating away at you from the inside. Let me be blunt. Living this way is a kind of slow, invisible suffering. It's a quiet internal breakdown that only you can feel. And the scariest part is, you may not even remember what it feels like to not live this way. Have you ever truly let go? Have you ever surrendered? Not in defeat, but in trust. I'm not talking about quitting. I'm talking about a different kind of courage. The kind that lets life breathe on its own. That stops micromanaging the timing of every single thing. Because here's a hard truth. Not everything is up to you. And that's not a failure. That's freedom. But the idea of letting go feels dangerous to you, doesn't it? Like betrayal. Like if you're not always pushing, you're irrelevant. Like if you stop, you'll vanish. Somewhere along the way, you confused your value with your output. You built your identity on productivity, on performance. And now, you have no idea who you are without the pressure. This isn't about giving up. It's about waking up. It's a crack in the illusion, a tiny breach in the wall you've spent years building around yourself. Because what if, just what if, life doesn't need to be conquered? What if it just needs your presence? I know what you're thinking. If I stop, nothing will happen. But the real question is, what if I keep going like this, and everything does break? Because eventually, something will. Your body will shut down, your mind will spiral, your spirit will grow numb. No one can live forever in a self-imposed war. So ask yourself honestly, what are you running from? With all this motion, all this endless doing, what are you trying not to feel? What would happen if today, just for a moment, you let the current take you instead of paddling upstream? Because here's the part no one tells you. Life isn't against you. It's just waiting for you to stop resisting. There's something most people miss about surrender. It's not just about stopping the hustle. It's about facing the silence that follows. That eerie quiet when the chaos dies down and you're left alone with yourself. That's what terrifies people. Not stillness, but the confrontation it brings. The truth is, we've been taught to tie our worth to doing, to movement, to productivity. If we're not checking boxes, we feel like we're failing. But here's a radical thought. What if the most precious parts of you can't be measured at all? What if your greatest strength isn't in what you do, but in who you are when there's nothing left to prove? When you stop pushing, you open a door to something deeper, something quieter, a kind of presence that doesn't need recognition, that doesn't need an audience. It just is. But being without doing, it's raw. It strips you bare. You see yourself in a way that action used to protect you from. You can't hide in performance anymore. That's why so many people stay addicted to the grind, not out of ambition, not out of passion, but out of avoidance. Because doing distracts us from feeling, from seeing. And yet, this is where flow truly begins. Flow isn't aimless. It's not laziness. It's a return to alignment, a surrender to something bigger than your plans, a trust that things are moving even when you're not forcing them. There's a kind of wisdom that doesn't speak through urgency. It speaks through silence. And it waits, not impatiently but steadily, for you to be still enough to hear it. You want to know how you'll know you're starting to trust that wisdom? When the fear of the void begins to fade. When you can sit in the quiet without panicking. When you can go a day without rushing and still feel like you matter. That's when you've started to flow. Because even in the pause, something profound is happening. We just can't always see it. Think about bamboo. For years, it grows underground, hidden from sight, doing what seems like nothing. But beneath the surface, it's building strength, developing roots so deep and wide that once it finally breaks the soil, it becomes one of the fastest growing plants on Earth. What if you're in that phase right now? What if your deepest growth isn't visible, not to others, and maybe not even to you? How many internal battles have you fought silently? How many versions of yourself have you outgrown without applause or validation? How much have you transformed in solitude? That is growth too. That is power. That is progress. And it happens without pressure, without applause, without force. But of course, our world doesn't know how to value invisible victories. You can't post them. You can't list them on a resume. There's no trophy or certificate for learning how to sit with your pain instead of running from it. Yet you know it's real. You've felt it. Something in you has shifted, quietly, while no one was watching. Something that can't be undone. That's the beauty of letting go. Real transformation becomes internal. It's not about proving. It's about understanding. It's not for others. It's for you. You stop changing to meet expectations, and you start evolving to align with who you actually are. That's the moment the old story starts to fall apart. The story that said you had to run, to strive, to push until your hands bled. You stop chasing recognition. You start craving truth. You stop hustling to earn a seat at the table and begin realizing you already belonged, long before you tried to prove yourself. And then something even more subtle starts to happen. When you change, the people around you feel it. Your energy shifts. You stop radiating stress and begin radiating presence. You stop infecting rooms with tension and begin offering calm. And even if they don't have the words for it, people notice. Because deep down, we're all starving for that. Starving to know that another way is possible, that not everything has to be urgent, that maybe we don't have to live like we're constantly about to fall apart. You become proof. Proof that peace is possible in a chaotic world. And that impact? It's quiet, but it's massive. But don't misunderstand me. This isn't easy. Surrender isn't passive. Letting go isn't weak. In fact, it's probably the hardest thing you'll ever do. It takes more courage to wait than to rush, more trust to receive than to chase, more faith to move without knowing exactly where you're going. And in that vulnerable space, in the waiting, the trusting, the not knowing, that's where the shift happens. That's where everything starts to realign. You start to notice things falling into place, opportunities appearing, doors opening, not because you forced them open, but because you finally made space for them to arrive. You stop operating from fear and start moving with openness. You stop begging life for crumbs and begin receiving what's already been on its way to you. Because you see, the universe doesn't respond to noise. It doesn't react to panic. It responds to frequency. It responds to presence. And when your inner world shifts from chaos to calm, everything around you starts to shift too. You stop broadcasting desperation and start transmitting trust. And that, more than any plan, any checklist, any relentless push, is what changes your life. Do you see now that control isn't power? That force isn't the same as progress? That transformation doesn't always announce itself with trumpets and cheers, but often whispers in quiet moments when you're still enough to hear it? You were never meant to control life. You were meant to dance with it, to move with it, to co-create something bigger than what your mind alone can imagine. And that begins the moment you stop gripping the wheel like it's all on you. Because it never was. You've never been alone in this. Not really. There's always been a current beneath you, waiting for you to stop paddling long enough to be carried by it. Now, I want you to pause, not physically, but mentally. I want you to really feel what's happening in your body right now. If something stirred inside you, if you felt even a tiny crack in the shell you've built around yourself, then that means something has already shifted. That change has begun, and there's no reversing it. You may not see it yet. That's okay. Real change doesn't always come as an epiphany. Sometimes it's just a seed, planted in silence, that grows every time the world tries to rush you back into old habits. And now, that seed is there, and no one can take that awareness from you. I'm not saying you need all the answers. I'm not asking you to abandon your life or your goals. I'm saying, maybe stop looking for perfect clarity before you move. Because some of the most powerful movements happen inside. The bravest steps are often invisible, the ones you take when no one's watching. The moment you choose to stop fighting so hard. The moment you decide that you're done breaking yourself to fit into a world that was never built for your peace. That's when everything changes, because the world around you is nothing but a mirror of your inner landscape. And when you shift inside, reality begins to shift too. You begin to align with yourself. And when that alignment happens, you no longer waste energy on forcing what isn't meant for you. You stop scaling walls that lead nowhere. You stop hammering on doors that were never yours to open. And that, believe it or not, is real power. Not the loud kind, not the kind you see in movies or on stages, but the kind that doesn't need to yell to be felt. The kind that doesn't need validation to exist. The kind that simply knows what's meant for you doesn't need to be forced. It just needs space. So look at yourself. Really look. If you're still here, listening, this isn't an accident. Something in you asked for this. Something in you is ready. It's ready to stop forcing. Ready to stop controlling every outcome. Ready to release the old story and write something new. Not a story of exhaustion and pressure, but one of trust, of flow, of allowing. And if this hit you, if something cracked open even just a little, don't let it pass without honoring it. Mark it. Leave a sentence. Just one. I'm ready to let go of control. Write it. Speak it. Whisper it to yourself. Doesn't matter if you've never commented before or if you think it won't make a difference. Because it's not about the sentence. It's about the intention behind it. It's about that first brave step towards something softer, something freer. And if you felt this in your bones, stay. Not for me, not for the voice, but for the version of you that knows there's more to life than pressure and pain. Stick around for the truths most people are too scared to speak, for the clarity buried beneath years of noise. This space, this message, it's not about surface-level motivation. It's not about shiny words or pretty quotes. It's about waking up. It's about remembering what matters. So if you know someone who's stuck, someone who's been grinding themselves down just to stay afloat, send this to them. No need for context, no explanation, just share it. Let them hear the message their soul has been starving for. And now, before we close, one last thing. Don't force your ending. Don't pressure yourself for closure. Don't build a future out of fear. Flow like you already know everything is working out. Walk like you're not in a rush. Act like everything you need is already on the way. Because it is. And when it shows up, it won't ask if you're ready. It'll just be there. And for the first time, you'll be still enough, open enough, to receive it. Until then, keep walking with peace, not urgency. Keep listening to the silence, not the noise. And maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of everything you've been waiting for. Or maybe you won't need to wait anymore.